Good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning. Good morning. Hope you are all doing great. I love life. Things are going great here. Can't complain. Booba Bodacious, who I this is the secret to him being first up every time at 7:50 a.m. Eastern Time, US. My alarm goes off. Open browser, sign into YouTube, click on subs, click on Count BTC. Click on show desktop site, click on live chat. Good morning, Bitcoiners. I love it, boo boo. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Bon matin à tous. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Where Do I Sats? Hope you're doing great. And boo boo with some French. Et bon matin à tous, indeed. Good, boo bodacious. If that gets you ahead in your day, yeah, well, we like to be ahead. We like to be ahead. A lot of early comments this morning. I was bed rotting, then found this. Now my mornings are full of optimism. Hey, boo boo, beautiful. Thank you. We don't like bed rotting, right? Bed rotting sucks. Wasn't that a word we were talking about the other day? Good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning, Brian. Hope you're doing great. Come early for a front row seat. I got the coffee. You bring the fire. Thank you, Joseph. I got some fire this morning. These are summer news days, so we're doing our best. But we're going to be talking about the dick measuring contest. That's on the agenda. So don't say we don't treat the real news here. Where do I set? I like Beaumatin. Sorry for getting accents all wrong. No problem, boo boo. You're doing great. B for victory. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Moscow time is coming right up. We got some excellent Moscow time this morning. Moscow time is perfect in the summer, I think, because you have all of these broken brain intern journalists. Like, imagine you want to be, like, you're aspiring to be a journalist. So that's who's running the ship right now. Some great brains there. Like a bonus ball. Brian, it is like a bonus ball. It is indeed. All right. So I got to tell you, we got some shit. I had to put on a light this morning. There is flooding in Vermont. There's flooding in New York. It's been raining nonstop since I got in last night. We drove from Montreal yesterday, saw my parents. Everyone's doing great over there, and met some friends on the Quebec side, crossed over just in time to beat the rain last night. But despite all the rain, despite the flooding, I can't see much on the horizon, but I can tell you right now, the sun is up. I got to use a light, supplementary light today, but the sun's up. We're good. Bitcoin running. We got to have a coffee and talk about what's new, right? So, as you know, we like to start every one of our mornings, including this beautiful Monday morning, with the fakest news we can find. We call it Moscow time, right? Moscow time. For those of you who don't know, by the way, just because we're getting so many new people joining us in the morning. The Moscow time joke comes from a Jack Dorsey thing where he was testifying in Congress about the stolen election in 2020. Remember that when they brought him in? What did you do, Twitter? What did you do? Right? And there were people who believed that he didn't, Jack Dorsey didn't get his way. He didn't try and help. There's all these crazy conspiracy theories. Everyone was believing Jack Dorsey was against them, except us Bitcoiners. So in this case, you had a lot of broken brain libtards that thought Jack Dorsey was somehow signaling Russians about Russia collusion with Trump because he had a block clock behind him. And the block clock number was similar to the time at that moment in Moscow. So a bunch of these fake journalists thought that Jack Dorsey was signaling Moscow to help Trump. And because they had hallucinated so much, it became a meme, Moscow time, right? So that's why we try and find, when you really have to hallucinate to make the news, right? When the news is predicated on hallucinations, that's Moscow time, right? So speaking of predicated on hallucinations, this one's great, right? So speed camera disparities. This is on PBS this weekend, the public broadcaster in America, right? Why automated speed cameras disproportionately affect black and brown drivers. Automated speed cameras. All right. This one comes from Australia, right? The home of the stupidest people in the world, in competition with Canadians and Kiwis and Americans, and there's a few others. This is from the Sydney Morning Herald, right? Doctors should avoid discussing patients' weight, Australian of the Year says. So the Australian of the Year says, fat's not a big deal, guys. Don't sweat it. No, nothing going on there. This one's pretty good. This comes from the UK, right? Refusing to fund your partner's gender transition could be domestic abuse. All right. New guidance states withholding money for transitioning or refusing to use a preferred name or pronoun would be seen as abusive behavior. All right. Well, this is actually, so we're going to do, this is a slight variation on Moscow time. This is Moscow time with the meme of, how does it go again? When it's the before and after, what do people say again? How it was going, or how it's going and how it is, or something like that. Anyway, this is one of those ones where you compare two different timelines, right? You know that meme. I can't remember what everyone does, you know? So this one's the best. This is a few days late. You might have heard it, but it's amazing, right? We love it, especially coming here in Vermont, right? So this is the two next ones. The first one is related to Vermont. The second one is not so much, but it's amazing. So you remember when Ben & Jerry's, right? So Ben & Jerry's, it's no longer even from Vermont, right? They haven't been using Vermont cream in stupid Ben & Jerry's in a long time. Nobody in Vermont eats that dog shit anymore. It's all made of vegetable oil. It's pure seed oil garbage. And there's enough people here in Vermont that make their own ice cream, so I don't have to bother with that crap. But Ben & Jerry, and they already sold to Unilever. They're like owned by a Belgian conglomerate or some bullshit like that. So Ben & Jerry's. And I used to love Ben & Jerry's, by the way. I was a huge Ben & Jerry's fan growing up. There were two Ben & Jerry's in Canada in the 1990s. One of them was in my little village, believe it or not, and because it's on the Vermont border, my little tiny village, which is known as Three Pines on Amazon, where Hillary Clinton should be real soon. She likes to spend her summers there because her ghostwriter co-author lives in my little village, and that's who made my village Three Pines for this Amazon show. So we had a Ben & Jerry's in my town. There was another one in Montreal on de Maisonneuve Street. So those were the only two Ben & Jerry's in Canada when I was a kid. I think there aren't many more now. There might be two in Montreal or some stupid shit like that. But anyway, as we know, the ice cream is garbage. So Ben & Jerry, they're kind of activist people, right? Even though they don't own the company anymore. So the other day on July 4th, this actually went viral. So they go on July 4th and they tweet this, right? The United States was founded on stolen indigenous land. This 4th of July, let's commit to returning it. So they're committing to returning it, right? So they even put a link, learn more and take action now. Well, the good news is someone did take action, right? So a Native American tribe from Vermont, right? That originally controlled the land in Vermont, where Ben & Jerry's head office is located, said, hey, what's up? You want to give away your land? I think you owe it to us. So they come out and say, Indigenous chief wants to take back Ben & Jerry's headquarters built on stolen land. A Native American tribe that originally controlled the land in Vermont that Ben & Jerry's headquarters is located on wants land returned to them after the company publicly called for stolen lands to be returned. We got to see this happen. This is one of the best things going, right? So Bitcoiners, pray to the simulation, pray to Jesus, pray to whoever you need to pray to. We got to see this happen, right? On a Bitcoin standard, I 100% believe that the Native Americans who used to run the Ben & Jerry's headquarters are going to get it back, right? So time will tell, but we'll see. So this is the before and after one, right? How's it going, or whatever that meme is again. How it started. Yeah, how it started. It's the how it started meme. Yeah, how it started. How is it going? Yeah, thank you, Brian. You helped me. Could not remember that meme, but this is the best one. The Ben & Jerry's, how it started, right? Let's give the land back. Whoops, right? That one's good, but this one's better. This is the best Moscow time one of the day. You know, the Sound of Freedom film that everyone's talking about, and it wiped Indiana Jones almost came third this weekend, by the way, and Mission Impossible comes out next week with Tom Cruise, so it's over. Sound of Freedom, of course, still getting tons of people reacting to it, tons of word of mouth going on. But there remain people who just don't want you to see it. And if you see it, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a QAnon person, and all these things. So Rolling Stone, so this is the how's it going, and then we're going to do the how it started later, because we're going to flip it because it's funnier that way. So Rolling Stone, right? And we're going to talk about Rolling Stone today because they came up in some of the RFK stuff. It looks more and more like Rolling Stone is very CIA adjacent, right? So Lex Friedman and RFK were talking about the Church Commission the other day, and the Mockingbird, Operation Mockingbird, which is the hiring of journalists to push propaganda. So Rolling Stone apparently completely aligned now with CIA, and that's why you get this kind of stuff. So their headline review, this isn't the one with the, they did have the writer that said it's brainworms if you watch this, which we read as Moscow Time 2 days ago. But here it is. So Rolling Stone, this is just, I'm just going to read their review, but I'm going to read a different review later. So here it is. Review: Sound of Freedom, the QAnon-tinged thriller about child trafficking, is designed to appeal to the conscience of a conspiracy-addled boomer, right? That's what they say. But just 3 years ago, right? You remember the French movie Cuties, which was all about children in beauty pageants getting sexualized? Rolling Stone wrote about that movie too. Did they have a problem with it? This is what they said about that movie. Thanks to a major marketing mistake, the award-winning French movie Cuties was accused of sexualizing young girls. It's actually a sensitive portrait of growing pains that deserves to be seen. Oh, thank you, Rolling Stone. Oh, yeah, I really need to watch sexualized children. Would just be, you gotta see it. You gotta see it, right? You gotta see it. So thank you, Rolling Stone, for being explicit about what you are, right? We're very happy about that. We're going to talk about this later, but it's the New Yorker, because you remember the special genre that I predicted a little while ago, that you would only see fake news about RFK, like a steady diet of fake news. So it's its own Moscow Time section now. And this one's pretty good. It's from the New Yorker, right? Because all the smart people read the New Yorker, right? The alternative facts of Robert Kennedy Jr., the Democratic presidential candidate, talks about his right-wing admirers, his distrust of scientists and the media, and his belief that the CIA was involved in JFK's death. They picked this picture of him where he's like kind of confused. They try to give him like a Joe Biden look in the picture too. He's like, you know, imagine trying to associate Joe Biden with RFK. Funny story. I got a private, someone sent me a picture of RFK this weekend. He was in the guy's camper van, just feet up, chilling out, checking his phone. I also saw a little bit of candid secret pictures of Biden this weekend. Biden went on a beach trip. Did anyone see it? He does the dementia shuffle on the beach. He's like the dementia shuffle, you know. So he did the dementia shuffle. Looked like a real idiot. So there you go. All right. So people still talking about this film, Sound of Freedom, and it's kind of trickling all over into these sexual discussions and what's going on with you know, people seeing the movie, people not seeing the movie. There's a whole fight around it. It sort of gathered everyone's attention this weekend, and Cernovich sort of had the perfect take on what this was in the case here of DeSantis. So it looks like DeSantis's campaign is completely imploded. He's actually the most boring candidate we've seen in a long time, right? It's very difficult to be as boring as he has become, right? He is, you know, I'm going to do the policies and I win. And meanwhile, Trump's talking about like freedom cities and throwing people from space. and you know, he's not doing the space thing, but he's talking about, you know, crazy stuff. So here's what Cernovich says. So it turns out DeSantis this weekend tries to run a bunch of ads on Trump, accusing him of being too trans-friendly, too gay-friendly, and that's a major problem, right? Remember what I said is the problem with DeSantis. If you get the anti-woke guy, what are you going to get? You're going to get more woke action reaction, right? So here he is. I'm going to go fight all the gay stuff and the trans business. So he created this attack ad on Trump, and it came out last week. And it's all about how Trump is too friendly with the trans and the gays. And then some weird way, it's like DeSantis is tough, but it shows a bunch of muscular men and like, very homoerotic. So Cernovich says this, and I think Cernovich has it perfect. And Cernovich is kind of a DeSantis fan. Like not fan is the wrong way to put it. He wanted to see a strong campaign of DeSantis in order to put pressure on Trump, right? Remember, Cernovich is one of the first people to abandon Trump, right? He did it the moment Trump embraced Paul Ryan in 2017. Since then, Cernovich has abandoned him. Cernovich was not part of the 2020 campaign. I've often said that's one of the main reasons why Trump lost. You can't just lose Cernovich and expect to do well, right? So Cernovich says this about DeSantis. He says, literally all DeSantis had to do was walk inside a movie theater for Sound of Freedom, and he'd be getting nonstop coverage for all the right reasons without getting into it with Trump. They can't even do the basics. They don't understand anything. He has no path to the presidency, right? So he even comes out, DeSantis, and says that Trump, the administration, was colluding with big tech to bury the Hunter Biden story in 2020 and criticizing the former president for not firing those involved with the alleged collusion at the time. Now, it's a fair criticism, right? It is a fair criticism, but he sounds like a moron. He'd sound stupid, right? Trying to pick up these points on Trump and saying that he colluded with big tech around the Hunter Biden story, terrible way to frame it. He could have said you didn't fire Fauci, which he's done before. You didn't fire this person. You didn't fire that person. There's some reason for that line to go there, but it looks like his candidacy is absolutely plummeting. Meanwhile, Vivek on the right wing side, on the conservative side, is just gathering all that DeSantis energy, gathering all of the DeSantis attention. And Vivek continues to do, I think, the right strategy in the media. He just sort of drafts behind every story, right? So like today, I put I try to do the same too. Today I put a literal measuring contest. I'm of course alluding to Elon trying to get a dick measuring contest going with Zuckerberg, which we'll talk about next. And this is what Cernovich says about Vivek in this way, trying to interject himself into every conversation. Vivek interjects himself into every media narrative. He's playing aggressively. DeSantis isn't riding any massive waves. He should be posting tickets of himself watching Sound of Freedom. Regime propagandists would melt down. Small wins daily. Audacity. But he's done nothing of the sort, and we don't see any of that, right? The attack ads are all like, trying to show that gay people appreciate Trump. It's not quite the own DeSantis thinks it is. And the funny thing is, as this was all going on, Caitlyn Jenner, formerly Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner starts criticizing so there's, the DeSantis surrogates who are trying to say, oh, it's true, Trump is too homo-friendly. No, we don't like it, right? Which is the only talking point DeSantis people are going on these days, which just shows how rock bottom stupid they are. So Caitlyn Jenner comes into this one guy who's not in the best shape, right? And so Caitlyn Jenner says, because the guy's getting emotional about Trump being, he likes gay people. So Caitlyn Jenner says, my goodness, emotional much? Too much estrogen. Are you transitioning? You have bigger breasts than me. It's funny stuff, right? Very funny stuff. So there you go. Looks like the advice, and by the way, when Cernovich quit on Trump for going the Paul Ryan route, that's more or less the route that DeSantis is choosing here. He's choosing to go with the normal backers of the Republican Party, the former financial backers of the party. And this is an important distinction because we're going to talk about this as we go forward with RFK and what's going on there. In so many ways, and I mentioned it before, Trump's real effect on American politics is that he was able to change the Republican Party itself to get these people out of determining the policies and agendas. Now, Cernovich is totally right to suggest that Trump's association with the Paul Ryans and trying to win them over in the early part of his presidency is what sunk him, right? He should have abandoned them from the beginning. Cernovich knew that. A lot of people knew that, right? But his ability to affect the Republican Party itself is why we're able to sort of move the sticks and change America, and why we're going through this big change. I continue to think that RFK can do the same thing to the Democrat Party, and that will be the big contribution. We're going to get to that. But first, let's go back. So this DeSantis Trump thing weirdly kind of rhymes with the Elon Musk Zuckerberg fight going on, right? So if you didn't catch that this weekend, Zuckerberg and Elon have been building on top of that fight they got into with about the cage fight, right? And now the Threads thing has come on top, and so they're talking about the cage match and talking about their business competition. But things got super weird this weekend when Elon Musk called Zuckerberg a cuck on the internet for not allowing MAGA people onto the Threads platform, by deplatforming people, by banning people before they even sign in, right? So anyone who's had an Instagram X on them can't sign in. He's not allowing for anon accounts. So this is how it started. Elon said, we're going to embrace anon accounts, which he hasn't done until now. So let's just point that out, that Elon is sort of playing a little fast and loose with reality here. He was not a friend of anons 2 weeks ago, right? So now he's saying we're going to defend anons because they're not going to do it on Threads. That's sort of a market distinction. And so he comes in and calls Zuck a cuck, right? Now, Zuckerberg does one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in my life, right? I don't even know if it's real, but apparently it is. Apparently it is, right? Now, again, I tried to verify this, and everyone's treating it as real. So I'm going to treat it as real, but it looked fake, right? So Zuckerberg responds, if I'm such a cuck, then why did my wife tell me that I have the biggest eggplant out of all the tech billionaires? That's what he responded, which is super weird, right? Like super weird. It doesn't even make sense. Like, if I'm a cuck, then this and that, right? Now you get a lot of people, of course, this is like, catnip. People are jumping all over the story, and the reactions towards Zuckerberg are obviously awful here, right? But the most impressive reaction that I saw came from George St. Pierre, and this sort of tells the whole story. So George St. Pierre with the fight, and now this thing about the dick and the this and the that. George St. Pierre comes out and says that he hopes Musk doesn't fight Zuckerberg because he considers Musk a once-in-a-lifetime inventor whose valuable time is better served building transformative technology. But he will train Musk if he wants to fight. So he says, we want him to keep working. He's changing the fate of humanity. These kind of men are too rare. You cannot waste that opportunity. You can make a leap in terms of technology of 100 years. So we need him. Ultimately, it's his decision. I told Elon if he needs my help, I'll be there to help him the best I can. So that's a good old Quebecois, I think, saying one of the most intelligent things you're going to hear today. And Cernovich adds to that, and he says, stuff like this tears Zuck up inside. Now, he's mind reading Zuck a little bit. Elon, seen as a truly great man of history by people who matter. Zuck himself chose to bend the knee to the regime propagandists and Taylor Lorenz. So this is the perfect visual, though, that he bent the knee to Taylor Lorenz, right? He hates himself for making that choice. It's driving him mad. Maybe he will take a new path. I believe he will. I'm predicting right now that you're going to see a Zuckerberg divorce, a divorce with an ear. Why a divorce? Threads, in my opinion, Threads is his wife's idea. She's very politically active, right? So now people are bringing up pictures of his wife and the kids and all that. Look, I'm not going to be here to make fun of people's looks and all that, but a lot of people wondering, a lot of people saying, you're a billionaire and you married that, right? Now, we're not here to, it's not a looks game. We're not talking about looks. But here's what I think. A guy like Musk, right, can have a platform where we're talking about everything under the sun, but he's sort of de-risked, or at least decentralized. Let's call it that. He's decentralized his influence by his partner. He's got, how many wives, or how many baby mamas does he have? 4 or 5 or something like this. He's got the 10 kids or the 9 kids or something. So in some ways, he is unable to be influenced by any one particular partner or wife or child. He's already got a child that went woke, but he's got a bunch more, right? Zuckerberg's got 3 kids and 1 wife. And you got to imagine, you just have to imagine that he's not doing threads to make money. There's no way you make money. Like Elon Musk can't make money off of Twitter, or a little bit, right? He's trying to do a lot to make money off of it. But in the case of Zuckerberg, this isn't about money, right? I think the whole threads thing was because politically people wanted that space and there was only one person who could provide it. So suddenly you get everyone who's in the bag politically saying, hey, this isn't about money. You got to fight for democracy. You got to fight for the system, man. You got to do this. You just got to sacrifice. More or less the same arguments that Elon got from other people in order to buy the thing in the first place. But the problem is the logic doesn't just shift to the other end, right? The other side. It doesn't work that way. So in the case of Zuckerberg, they've already got all the different media to have these conversations. One more isn't that necessary. It's the whole nature abhors a vacuum again, right? Nature abhorred a vacuum, and that's why everyone flooded back into Twitter when you were able to have a conversation again, because it's the only place you can have it. Now, what I'm saying is because Musk doesn't have a wife, right? He doesn't have to go home after work and say like, oh shit, Twitter didn't go the way I thought. Now, imagine he had a wife who was, politically a little different. And she said, don't buy Twitter. It's going to be a headache. And then 6 or 7 months later, right, and it was a headache. And he went home and he would say to his wife, oh, you were right. It really was a headache, right? I shouldn't have. I got all these crazy things going on now. They're saying I'm trafficking in child stuff, right? Which wouldn't be true, but he'd still have to deal with it, right? But he doesn't have to deal with that. He doesn't have the liability of a partner in life whose political opinions he has to listen to. He doesn't have that, right? Now, we can say what you will about the benefits of marriage, which I 100% believe in, right? I have a very happy marriage. I'm very pro-marriage, very pro-monogamy, all those things. But in the case of Zuckerberg, you got to be careful of who you marry, right? So all of a sudden, Zuckerberg can't just like go home from a day at Facebook. He's got to listen to his wife, who is very politically active. She looks politically active, let me tell you, and she looks like her politics. Let's just say that, right? And so you got to imagine that he's got all this pressure. So here's what's going to happen. This is why I make the prediction. I don't know anything about the relationship, but I'll be correct if he is divorced around the same time as Threads close down. He spent how many billions on Meta? How many billions on the stupid coin, right? Now his wife had an idea. He did it. He did it, right? At what point is he going to have to say this thing is a failure? And I think the whole thing becomes a failure. I think they're related now. And if Cernovich is true, he's mind reading. So we're not going on any data here other than a bit of mind reading, right? So this is just where I think things are headed, but I think he's headed for divorce. I think you're going to hear Zuckerberg divorce within a year. And they're not going to cite Threads or anything like that. It's just a normal divorce. But I think it'll be Threads that did it, right? That's just me. Now, I could be 100% wrong. Threads could take over Twitter. It could be the biggest thing. It could be where everyone fights the election in 2024. I don't think so. I think you're going to see a Zuckerberg divorce within the year. And I have no evidence of such a thing other than what I see in Threads. I have no clue about what's going on in the relationship. Maybe she's great. Maybe they get along excellent. Maybe Threads is going to make money. I think he's going to divorce her and shut Threads down by the time the 2020 election comes along. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. So that's what we know about Zuck. Yeah, here was the thing about where this started, right? This is Elon saying this platform will protect anons for this reason particularly, and this is a people sort of memeing about Threads. Oh, you're posting on an alt? Why don't you use your real photo and name so I can call your employer and get you fired for disagreeing with my retarded worldviews? That's the reason why Zuckerberg is now, Musk is now supporting this thing. But here's the thing about Zuckerberg and why, his situation is going to be so perilous and why the divorce might come, right? So he comes out just the other day when he did that, Lex Friedman interview, right? So he's getting into the podcast now because all the other tech billionaires are. And so he admitted that social media companies help the medical establishment censor scientific claims. So some people saying, oh, is Zuckerberg opening his eyes, right? He says they undermine the integrity of public discussion about pandemic policy and undermine democracy. The leaders of the medical community need to apologize. So this was Zuckerberg sort of rationalizing what happened around COVID and trying now, like, giving, when he's even saying it, he's giving this like skeptical look, like it doesn't make sense to me now, right? Were they lying? What's happening? Nina Infinity said the following, right? Except that Facebook censored actual doctors questioning the COVID narrative and pushed the big pharma talking points even after proof came out that they were wrong. So what Zuck is actually doing when he's saying, now it doesn't make sense to me, what she says Zuck is actually doing is gaslighting, right? Saying, I'm not responsible, I'm deflecting and doing these things. Indeed, no one is going to forget that Zuckerberg spent $400 million to fortify the elections. And remember, he already got caught for cheating in Wisconsin, right? There is a part of the Wisconsin 2020 election which was illegitimate because of Facebook's involvement, right? So, and he spent, like $400 million. And it's that guy who's trying to tell Elon that you shouldn't be giving free speech to Americans before the 2024 election. So this whole thing, I think, continues to sort of fall into that category of gaslighting and changing your opinion and trying to fit in, even though the world is changing. It's a little bit like the Mark Twain quote, right, about lying, right? The best reason why you don't lie is because it becomes hard to remember all the lies. Like you can't just keep up with all of the lies, right? Telling the truth is easy because you don't have to remember what you're supposed to say. And by remembering what you're supposed to say, what the lie is, you're going to trip yourself up a bit. So that, that ability of Zuckerberg to sort of pivot right now is probably not open to him. And I think he's going to have major changes in his life coming up. That, that's just a prediction to put out there. Something I think that's going to happen. And so there. Speaking of predictions, though, remember the prediction that I made for a long time, breakup joiners in the morning, right? Since the Ukrainian war began, I made a prediction that our understanding of the tools of war would become totally upended by the Ukrainian conflict, that we would have a completely different understanding of what weapons work, which weapons don't, what are obsolete. There'd be a new sort of upgrade of warfare, and the beginning of it was the Ukraine conflict. So it just so happens that the Wall Street Journal has produced an article today which confirms my prediction of a year and a half ago. And Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, shared it, and Elon Musk also responded to him on Twitter. So he says, Ukraine will change our understanding of war and combat forever. And the article title is The Future of War Has Come in Ukraine. Drone swarms. Exactly what I said was going to be it. Drone swarms, right? Now, The last piece of that prediction is that you're going to see an aircraft carrier sink into the sea from a drone swarm sometime in the next year. I never gave a timeline, a legitimate timeline. I just know we're going to see it within this World War III conflict, right? So you're going to see these drone swarms destroy things. We've seen the tank stuff. We've seen all that. But this drone argument, right, falls into a current happening in the Ukraine war as well, which is along the lines of the gaslighting that Zuckerberg is up to, which is Joe Biden now saying that cluster munitions, right, even though they're banned by everyone, even though they're obsolete themselves in some ways, are going to be pushed. And so you see all these headlines in the past couple of days. They're trying to push them out through various media sites. So you get the newspapers saying, oh, he didn't have a choice, right? He's got to put them out now. There's all kinds of newspapers sort of rationalizing the rationalizing the cluster munitions, saying, oh, it was always bound to be. We don't have a choice, right? We're running out of normal bullets. So Joe Biden even admitted in a press conference before he went to the beach this weekend that they are indeed running out of munitions. This was not supposed to be spoken out in public as of a little while ago. David Sachs bringing it up. The point of the proxy war was to weaken Russia, but the U.S. ran out of ammo first. So who's weakening whom, right? U.S. wants Russian military weakened from Ukraine invasion, is what he was tweeting there. And War Clandestine comes out and says, Ukraine out of ammunition. Biden with a pretty damning admission when responding to reporters asking about cluster munitions to Ukraine. They've run out of ammo. This confirms the Western media have been lying about the status of the war. Ukraine is in bad shape. And you have Kennedy, who came in and mentioned that exact same thing, right? So talking about these bombs, talking about the change of things over there, talking about how no one is seeking peace and no one is suing for peace, and that even though they're out of weapons and munitions, they're going to send even crazier ones, banned, which America is signed to ban, which is the cluster munitions. Now, as I understand, the Russians are using them. They've already broken the deal. It's not so simple as, oh, look, America getting out of some treaty it signed. But nevertheless, Kennedy here shares a statement about Biden the moment he took office, talking about how America is back, right? Remember, because everyone was embarrassed about Trump, right? He was so embarrassing, but the guy who goes to the beach and does the dementia shuffle isn't embarrassing, right? And he says, in February 2021, President Biden promised us diplomacy is back, but now the White House rejects talks to end the Ukraine war, sends cluster bombs instead. It would be nice to see our president put as much energy into talks as he does into sending weapons. Now, they did put a bit of energy into talks. Remember my wonderful prediction that sending Janet Yellen to be our chief diplomat to China was going to return amazing dividends for Bitcoiners? Amazing. Like that was the best Bitcoin thing that could happen. So little munchkin Janet Yellen is over in China. And what does she do? Probably looks as dumb as any foreign diplomat could ever look in the case of America. We sent Blinken, who just was totally embarrassed over there. Biden can't be sent, obviously. So Yellen, right, goes to meet the prime minister of China or vice premier. She didn't get to meet anybody, right? She's so low on the thing. But you got to see the images, guys. I can't. I'm going to try and stand up and do it. So first of all, Chinese people don't bow, right? That's not a thing in China. It's a Japanese thing. It's a Korean thing. Nobody bows in China. That's not a Chinese thing. That's a Japanese and Korean thing. So, she's not 5 feet tall. She's just a tiny little munchkin of a person, right? So she goes to meet the Chinese guy, and you got to see the video, but I'm going to do my impression of her, right? So she's there and she's just bowing, and he won't come near to her. She's got to put the arm way out, right? And she does like 100 bows, and then her face is like she's doing the same, the buy Bitcoin face when she's like this. You know, when the Bitcoin sign guy has that, right? She does the same face like this, right? And she's trying to shake this guy's hand and bowing like 100 times, right? 100 times. She looks like a Japanese salaryman drunk outside of a subway saying goodbye to his colleague. If you haven't been to Japan and seen that, it can take 25 minutes of just them bowing to each other, right? Saying goodbye because they're a little tipsy, right? That's like a sport in Japan. We used to bet on that. How many bows do you think it's going to be, these drunk guys, you know? Just bowing, bowing, bowing. So this is what people have been saying on the internet. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, who is on a visit to China, is criticized for her excessive friendliness. Imagine Janet Yellen was excessively friendly to you. How uncomfortable would that make you feel, right? Which is expressed in numerous bows at a meeting with her Chinese counterpart. Diplomatic etiquette experts at New York Post note that American officials do not bow at all and point out that Chinese Vice Premier He Lifan, to whom Janet Yellen bows glibly, does not respond with a mutual movement, a protocol error that critics will call a sign of America's weakness. Indeed, he doesn't move at all, right? She's just sitting there like, let's go, send her everywhere. Send her to Ukraine. She can solve it. Send her to meet Putin, right? She's the best. She is the best. We'll never find a better Treasury Secretary than her. She fits it right in with Biden. It's the perfect person at the perfect time for Bitcoin. The Bitcoin sign guy prank continues to pay dividends. As long as she stays in the game and the Bitcoin sign guy legacy lives on, we're going to win. There's no way you can leave her in charge of something so big as Chinese negotiations if you're a serious entity in the world. They sent Janet Yellen, right? Now, of course, you're not going to hear about any of this, right? It's the same as, the Zuckerberg thing, right? That was the whole point of Threads, was to not have people hear the stuff, right? So big failure over there. No one is going to forget that is paying attention to this stuff, that she continues to just be a complete failure. Now, the reason why all of this is so important, and the reason why the Threads failure and normal media failure and what's going on Twitter and how much important debate is happening there, and the podcasts, right? Which again is what RFK predicted, that the podcast would be the number one way that he would be able to ascend, because he was never going to get a fair shake from the media. And when you think about her failure, when you think about his success on the podcast, you start to see the kind of information that he's disseminating on the podcast. And Mark Dice, who is a big conservative influencer on YouTube, did a show yesterday on RFK. And what he did on the show on RFK was about the Lex Fridman interview. And in the Lex Fridman RFK interview, he starts bringing up the Mockingbird, Project Mockingbird, right? Which was which we found about during the Church Commission, which we've mentioned many, many times here together, right? The Church Commission being the investigation into CIA infiltration of mainstream media in the United States in the 1970s. And that's where they found out that all these people on the payroll of the CIA, foreign journalists. So a lot of people don't know anything about this. I didn't know much about it until sort of recently-ish. And even though I was a huge fan of Nixon and always believed Watergate was a scam and fake news and a CIA op and all these things, I didn't know all the connections. I've learned a lot more about it recently. But so having someone like RFK on all of these podcasts talking about Mockingbird and Church Commission and CIA infiltration of the news media fits in very well with his worldview about COVID being managed by the NSA and not by health practitioners, which is the very reason why he's running. So it's a media literacy campaign, really, right? Really. When people say that RFK's campaign is against the vaccines, it's against this and that, it's not. It's against media illiteracy. You can tell because he is embracing the conspiracy theorist title they've thrown at him. But again, it's the perfect title for him, right? He is one of the only people that is inoculated. He is immunized from the criticism of being a conspiracy theorist simply because his dad and uncle and everybody was killed. He has a right to ask questions. He does. And I think most Americans know that. Now, the propaganda works to a certain extent. You still talk to, shit libs and all that. Oh, the conspiracy theorist guy, right? So it has an effect. But nevertheless, going on all of these podcasts continues to just peel more people out of the mainstream media narrative and attract more people to what he's saying. And the truth about the Mockingbird thing. This is something that was shared from Mark Dice last night on the original Church Committee report from the 1970s, and he pulled out a quote, which is incredible, and I'll read it to you. The CIA currently maintains a network. This is written in the 70s, right? So the CIA. This is from Congress, right? So what I'm reading right now is an actual congressional publication. The CIA currently maintains a network of several hundred foreign individuals around the world who provide intelligence for the CIA and at times attempt to influence opinion through the use of covert propaganda. These individuals provide the CIA with direct access to a large number of newspapers and periodicals, scores of press services and news agencies, radio and television stations, commercial book publishers, and other foreign media outlets. Now, the thing is, in 2016, when Obama changed this, what he actually changed was that the media can hire these people now, like John Brennan and James Clapper. Everyone who laid the Trump collusion trap are directly paid by the media agencies. They're employees of CNN, right? They are just employees. So now the mainstream media can actually take the cost burden away from the CIA in America legally in order to spread propaganda, which is just incredible. Which brings me to the point, though, about RFK's path to victory, right? And what he can actually do to influence Democrat politics and the Democrat Party. So in the Jordan Peterson interview, and this piece has started to go a little viral, right? When they ask him, like, why are you doing this, right? You got this house and you got, he did a video this weekend, by the way, at the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport or wherever it is, Martha's Vineyard or Cape Cod, or just describing the houses and the amazing child that he had, 29 cousins on this little summer compound. And so Jordan Peterson, like, why are you doing this? And he said, well, it turns out that a pollster came to my house last summer. This is his words, right? And by the way, here's a story that not a lot of people know. But it's similar to how Trump got his candidacy going. And one of the reasons I knew Trump was serious before most people. All right. So I'll tell the Trump path to victory pollster story, and I'll tell the RFK path to victory pollster story. So the Trump path to victory story goes like this. There's a fella out there named Conrad Black, right? So Conrad Black is a lord in England, but he's Canadian and actually started his newspaper empire in my little village, Three Pines. Right? He was a newspaper magnate for years. He owned the Chicago Sun-Times, the Jerusalem Star, the London Daily Telegraph, a bunch of newspapers in Canada, and sued Prime Minister Chrétien years ago in Canada, the Prime Minister in the 1990s. And because of that, this weird thing where he got peerage in England, he was actually administered by or ushered into the House of Lords by Henry Kissinger and Margaret Thatcher. An incredible writer. He's the guy who I learned that Nixon thing was fake news to begin with, right? So an incredible historical mind, this fella. He ended up going to jail in Florida because of some blah, 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 white crime bullshit. And so he spent years in jail in Florida and brought his case to the Supreme Court and won. So he's a very clever fella, right? Much of his money was taken from him, all that stuff, right? So in 2015, but he still writes. So he'll still write for the newspaper from time to time. And in 2015, he wrote about Trump's candidacy being 100% serious when everyone thought it was fake. And he says, no, he has a path to victory. And it's because he himself, Conrad Black, had spoken to Trump the year before. So Trump was the only person that showed up to defend him. They own the Chicago Sun-Times building in Chicago together, where a Trump Tower got put in, I guess. And so Trump, on his own volition, came to help this guy during his court case when everyone was abandoning him because it was white-collar crime and all that. Trump, out of nowhere, just said, no, I'm going to go defend this guy. So he never forgot that Trump came to defend him. And in 2015, he said that Trump came to him to talk to him the year before, I guess 2014, about running. And he showed Conrad Black, who's always been involved in politics, some of the poll results, right? So some of the polling he had done. And what he showed Conrad Black was the following: that American appetite for a third party type candidate, for an outsider, had never been greater. And that if he just attacked the tenets of a political party, in this case, the Republican Party, he could win, right? And Conrad Black was one of the first people to observe that and say, you're correct. So in Canada, if you read Canadian mainstream media in 2015, there was only one voice in Canada who predicted he would win and that he would be a strong candidate and all that, and it was serious, and it was Conrad Black, right? So a lot of people were following it at the time and saying, oh, wow. So indeed, everything Conrad said came true, and the polling seemed to have been right. A very similar thing happened to RFK, where last summer someone came up and just out of their own idea said to RFK, here's the polling, here's what Americans are saying they want, here's what Democrats are saying they want. They're not happy about the party turning to this direction, turning to that direction, now promoting war, lockdowns, mandates. There is an appetite in the Democrat Party for something different. The same appetite that Trump was referring to when he spoke with Conrad Black in 2014 about the poll results and his path to victory. So in the case of RFK, he saw the same situation, and it was presented to him, and they said, look, you can win this because of these feelings and all that. And indeed, the appetite that has been developed for these types of outside the box, outside the system, third party style candidates actually comes, I'll argue, from the corruption of money and the degradation of the US dollar. And I'll explain why. So remember the dick measuring contest thing we were talking about at the start, right? When there's no more fight and Elon just says to Zuck, let's just go with a straight dick measuring contest, buddy. Let's do it, right? Of course he's joking. He's getting attention. He's doing the thing a bachelor would do, frankly, if they own a social media site, right? No married man is going to go out and say, let's have a dick measuring conversation, right? So, this measuring contest has everything to do with price signals failing, with our ability to follow the money, our ability to have a media that follows the money. Just think about what this Mockingbird operation says. The people who print money are able by law to pay people to propagandize with fake money, with debt issued money that's issued on the backs of the taxpayers and all that. So imagine taxpayers are currently paying to be propagandized. They're paying to have people lie to them. And that creates one of these nature abhors a vacuum situations, which is why his polling is saying to him that his path to victory is to literally just tell the truth. His path to victory is to tell the truth, and that the appetite for the truth is so great that he can win. And indeed, if you're going to have a measuring contest in the end, right, that's where his embrace of Bitcoin is so important. Because and in the end, that's what Bitcoin really is. When I talk about the US dollar becoming food stamps and the US dollar becoming all these things, what I'm really saying is it's not useful to measure the economy anymore. It's not useful to measure what's going on in the world anymore. And that is how the initial stage of hyper-Bitcoinization is going to take off. It has nothing to do with everyone in the world holding Bitcoin, and if enough plebs hodl Bitcoin, which I'm all for. I want as many plebs to get to the Bitcoin now while they can. But that's not what makes it, right? Inevitably, the whole world will go that way. But the first stage is the plebs get in, but because the money itself is a better measuring stick for the economy, the energy companies and the Wall Street folks are going to get in. The more Janet Yellen bows in China, the more these political people run up debt on the heads of Americans who are not interested in paying to be propagandized too much more, the more likely it is you're going to have an actual collapse in the tax base. You're going to have actual scofflaws and dissidents towards the taxation of Americans. But more importantly than all of that, you're going to get rich people not measuring their output any longer in US dollars or political money, right? That's why the BlackRock thing is so significant. These folks are saying out loud that they need sovereign hedge because of those risks. Now, the thing about Bitcoin is not that it is, oh, look at how much Bitcoin is worth. That's not how things are going to be going forward at all. At all. It doesn't matter how much USD the American dollar is worth. I've been predicting since I worked for Kraken, and at Kraken made the case for proof of reserves as the number one tool at the company to go forward, the number one data tool at the company to go forward. Not because I thought people wanted assurances necessarily. No, that the number one data point is simply measured in Bitcoin, right? How much money does the bank have? Well, this is how much Bitcoin we have. Because that's the future of GDP. GDP is no longer going to be a political number cobbled together with all kinds of mathematical wizardry. It's not that. It's just Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out, right? That's what you're going to measure economics in. Bitcoin in the end is the measurement tool for the economy, right? In the same way that Celsius is the measuring tool for, or any, temperature is the measuring tool for the weather outside, right? And Celsius being the better one, frankly. Fahrenheit kind of sucks, even though I don't mind it. Not a great tool. But the idea of a measuring tool that we can extend throughout the economy that allows us to tell us what's going on, right? And that could apply to media, that can apply to the success of any format, platform. The point is you're going to measure it in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a unit of measurement, right? It doesn't matter how much dollars it's worth, because that's still making dollars the unit of measurement. The more and more people, the more and more industries that start using Bitcoin in this way. And now an ETF is just the start, right? But more and more you're going to see an argument for not just wealth preservation, but measurement in Bitcoin, because you're not going to be able to measure anything in dollars soon. Once Janet Yellen gets her way, and these political forces, and the political forces that have shaped the dollar for the last little while have to be accounted for, you're going to get a completely different situation. And for those reasons, the ability to measure the world in Bitcoin and get some more accuracy around what's going on in the world is where things are headed. And that's why this telling the truth thing is going to be so important. In the case of RFK, his path to victory is to literally tell the truth. It's the same with Bitcoin. The path to Bitcoin is to just literally do what it's doing. It doesn't have to do anything special, right? It just has to continue to be what it is, and the world will change around it in order to explain itself using Bitcoin. It's not Bitcoin that's going to change, it's the world. And it's the same with the Democrat Party and RFK. It's not RFK who's going to change, it's the Democrat Party. Just like it wasn't Trump who's going to change, it was the Republican Party that changed, right? And all of that combined, it's America, the country, that's going to change in the end. And that should produce what we're all hoping for, a hyper-Bitcoinized world that separates money and state in a way that will allow us to have a better media, so that we're not, a path to victory in the future shouldn't just be, oh, I told the truth, right? Like, you still want a bit of creativity out there, and you want some all that. But it looks like RFK's path to victory by telling the truth is going to be enough. And I don't think he needs to change at all. And then it just comes down to, what the rest of the country wants after he manages to do that. So there you go. It's all a measuring contest, guys, right? And we've got better measuring tapes. All right, let's get some of these quotes. I didn't spend too much time looking at them today. All right, let's see. Let's see where we are. Let's see. Okay. Weekended Bidens. Weekend and Biden. That's what it looked like. If you guys saw the beach video, it looked like Weekend at Biden's, Weekend at Bernie's. It definitely did. Yeah. It definitely did. When he hasn't the U.S. involved in government affairs, both foreign and domestic. Yeah. Weekend at Biden's. It's hard not to listen to RFK when he is telling his tales. Yeah, his stories are good, huh? Yeah, OSS was the CIA. Exactly. Yeah. So the Goblin Dude 69420 OSS was the CIA before World War II. Yeah. What's this about Cold Card? Cold Card has new unit releasing this fall. Looks like BlackBerry buying that for sure. Cool. Yeah, I got to check that out. Very cool. Very cool. No, we don't want Sailor as POTUS, man. He's good where he is. You don't need him to be POTUS. It's a tough job, man. It's a tough job. Like RFK is not. Look what it did to Trump. I mean, although Trump is one of the only people that look better after his presidency. He looked good. By the way, did you see Trump at the UFC this weekend? Amazing. You got to admit that there's something special about Trump, right? Here's what Cernovich says about it. He goes, and remember, Cernovich is not a Trump fan, supporter, but this is what objectivity looks like, right? He says, there's something about Trump. It's magic. You see a picture and laugh. It's not I'm not a sentimental guy. I don't care about celebrities, and intellectually was extremely bothered by his presidency, but you can't help but love the guy. No one else is like this. Yeah, that's where I'm at with Trump. Like the koi fish picture, like what is it about this guy that is so entertaining? You can't look at him without being entertained, right? I think if everyone stayed home from voting, the government would have the right to rule over us. It doesn't matter who the two options are, only that people voted for the system to continue. Vote with BTC. Yeah, that's right, Tommy. But I mean, we're seeing it change before our eyes. So I'm not, while I agree with you, I think the simulation is turning up a more entertaining outcome than that, which is implosion of the fiat system with Janet Yellen bowing, a diseased brain president. It's perfect. Like it couldn't get her bowing, she's the best. She's the best. DeSantis using yeah, absolutely, P-Man. Terrible. Just terrible. I think people are talking about Arubasu, and this is me, I think at this point, talking about because he slept with all of them, Zuckerberg, you idiot. I think we're talking about my divorce prediction here. Not his reply, of course. Yeah. Let's see. Crypto Shinobi says, who are the biggest shareholders? Tesla, Facebook, Twitter, BlackRock, and Du Bois. Well, the Black, they're part of the show. I don't know if everyone's all on the same team, but we'll see. Ouch, poor Zuck. Not good. Okay, yeah. This is the this is me making the prediction that he'll get divorced. I think so. I think he's got to. I'm not advocating divorce. I just think that in the end, the Threads thing and all of this, not going to work out. So Zuckerberg asked his wife, and she said free speech was bad, guys. Let's not do free speech. That's actually what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's why Threads exists. That's my only way I can explain it. It's not to make money. It's not to make money. You can't make money off this shit, right? It's not for money. He's got enough money. Not sure if you saw the Biden goys acting a stay of execution regarding the judgment that they can't censor through social media. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, and are they doing this because they have mass support? No, this is P-Man. This is absolutely clown world. Like, I don't know, what are we gonna do? Injunction, right? That's it. They're gonna try and push it to another court. It's not gonna work. It was always a scam. They're doing it so they have narrative support. Yeah, Brian. Yeah, narrative. Yes. They have people will run cover for them for a little bit, but it's just going to bleed into that. Let's dilute the Supreme Court and all that stuff again, right? Hopefully they don't run enough cluster bombs. I guess we don't need new. Yeah, exactly. Boo, stacking sats and stacking count BTC content. Yeah, indeed, life is good. Give us a like. We like the likes, right? Janet with the little shit bow. Yeah, I got it. Oh yeah, you gotta see it, guys. I gotta see this. You gotta see the Janet Yellen. You gotta see her. I don't have a picture. Let me see if I got one. The face is too good. You gotta see the face. It's not gonna show up. It's not gonna show up, guys. I don't have a good picture. You'll get it. You'll get it. Someone's got to put it there. Someone's gonna put it. Words are cool. I know. You gotta. It's the face, though. You gotta see the face. Who is Bitcoin sign guy? No, that was real. He's a real guy. Yeah, I met him a bunch of times. He used to come in the office all the time at CoinDesk, and I met him at events and all that. Yeah, super guy. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, we're doing our best. Christian Alon, is that his name? Yeah, he literally would come in the office at CoinDesk and be, hey, Sign Guy's here. You know? He was our man of the year in 2017, by the way. So our most influential at CoinDesk. So he came in a few times. Forget where he got a job, but I even saw him for that. We booked him. I booked him for speaking a bunch too, and blah blah blah. What's up? What's up? What's up, Vince? Hope you're doing good. What is in the populism is going on with Bitcoin Magazine? We're not recycling guy. That's for sure. We burn our garbage around here. Populist burning of garbage. Any thoughts on lady seeing aliens on a plane? No. I saw that, Daniel. Yeah, I don't know. That person isn't real thing. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't found anything. I think it's a summer, thing. I don't know. Some people said she was drunk. I don't know. There you go. Ich bin eine Bitcoiner. Ice cream causes dementia, literally, but Mr. Bitcoin, it is also the prescribed treatment for dementia because it brings back childhood memories and calms you down. It's the anger that screws it up, right? So that's why. Yeah, there you go. If tape measure shrank like the value of the dollar, we would have a lot more tiny homes. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. You can't shrink a tape measure and have it be useful, but that's what they've done to the dollar. That's why Bitcoin will win. It's just a better measuring tool. Can RFK's voice get better? I like him more than a divisive Trump. Yeah, me too. I love Trump, but it is, again, he already cracked reality. He cracked the egg. You don't need him again. It's too expensive and too difficult and stressful and all that stuff, right? When Dr. Shiva, I don't know much about Dr. Shiva, but not against it. Those who want Dr. Shiva and those who want to be Kennedy subjects. Oh, I see. We're subjects. I see. All right. Well, recycling guy, I'm pretty sure there's some recycling that needs to happen somewhere. Someone somewhere is doing what I like doing, burning garbage. So, have you watched Breedlove Interview, the German guy, about world history through the lens of money? He mentioned a show in Italy that has a character say the U.S. Gov created Bitcoin to combat de-dollarization. Yeah, I've heard that theory before. Yeah. Do I believe it? I mean, look, if you knew how this stuff worked in 2008 when the meltdown happened, you would have predicted before Bitcoin that China it would be a matter of time before the Chinese money stepped in. Now, whether or not it's true or fake wouldn't matter. You'd have the conversation. So indeed, I could see why someone would do it. Now, I just personally don't believe it because I've dealt with enough early Bitcoiners. I just don't see it. But maybe. And I've also dealt with enough intelligence agencies to know that they're not quite as smart as you think they are. So the genius of Bitcoin is not necessarily a committee can come up with, right? It's an inspired artistic expression. You can't mandate that. So, and anyone who says, oh, they had the horsepower, the brain power. No, they didn't. You wouldn't work for those losers if you knew what you were doing and wanted to make money, right? Yellen Bow going to be great new meme content. That Reddit EBO thread was a trip. Yeah. It may be raining in Montreal, but it's always sunny when I'm with Bitcoiners. Thanks, B-Man. We love it. Cheers, B-Man. You should collaborate with Dr. Shiva on Bitcoin. He needs more knowledge on blockchain. Yeah, maybe I will, Crypto Shinobi. Maybe I'll ask him. I do a lot of that. I reach out to people who need it when they're out there spewing crazy shit and they don't have Bitcoin on their mind. I'm a specialist in that, right? I'm a specialist. All right, team, that's all I got for today. I got to go to the Vermont DMV for annoyances and things like that. So I shall see you all tomorrow. Enjoy the day. Peace.